Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A. So we got 8 more questions for you. So let's get it started. This first question is going to be a little controversial. Actually, a couple of these are going to be controversial, but I don't mind. First question, do you dislike Ian? Well, a lot of you saw all that fiasco that went down. Let me put it this way. Ian and I always had a bit of a strained relationship. After he went into business with Mike, and after the way Mike has treated me, a lot of you may or may not be aware, and I'm not going to hash out all the details, but Mike has attempted to crucify me, not just on the internet. This is real world shit. He went into business with him through the smart powders thing. I've been a little somewhat distrustful and at unease with Ian. And to me, when Ian kind of backed out, took Lane's side on that other situation publicly, it made me realize that Ian, who is in business with someone who has made themselves my enemy, chosen to be my enemy, not just on the internet, but in the real world, who really and truly wants to cause me real problems, really serious problems, has publicly stated that he wants to and would love nothing more than for me to have issues. When Ian's in business with him and then he publicly takes a stance against me and takes the side of someone else who has also publicly declared me their enemy, publicly declared war on me, and caused me problems in the real world, or has attempted to, then I have to think of Ian as an enemy. No way around it. And there's any reasonable person would at that point. The difference when people say, do you dislike them? I think people pussy out on this type of answer. They always say this, well, this person has done me wrong or whatever, but I don't hate them, I don't dislike them, I don't wish them ill will. That is a weak mentality. That is the type of mentality in life that either makes you sound like a cop-out and a liar that you don't want to admit to it because you want to look good to other people, or you really are a weak person. You're going to get taken advantage of, and people are going to fuck you over hard in life. Me personally, when anyone is my enemy, I don't like them. Do I wish them harm? I wish they get Ebola. I hope every person who is my enemy out there, I hope they get Ebola. And before I go to bed at night, I pray to Nurgle, the Lord of Roth, that he infects every person who has made themselves my enemy with fucking Ebola. So for once, you've heard somebody be honest on this type of thing. All right, next question. Did you jump on that celltech because of some of the ideas you've discussed in the transhumanism video, or because you wouldn't have been able to reach your true genetic potential with your then new hormonal condition? Originally, it was never even a discussion. There was no talk of anybody I knew of actually competing in anything drug-free. Even all the guys I knew who competed in drug-free shit cheated on the drug test. It was just assumed that when you reached a certain threshold, you would go on gear. As far as the later in life, I, believe it or not, I've never made this public. I've always acted like, oh, this is my hardline stance. But you guys want me to be honest here. I struggled with this one for a little while. I almost, God, I hate to say this, I almost joined the IPF. Even with my TRT prescription, I almost joined the IPF. I have a friend who is an official in the IPF, a really good guy. Wanted me to join it, gets a lot of exception. Even to this day, even though he knows that over here, the IPF will ban me for 2 years from competing because of my affiliation with an untested federation, or even competing in an untested meet, bans you from the IPF for 2 years, automatically. He really just told me that he really wants me to get my WADA exception, take 2 years out from competing and come compete with him. He would love it if I did that. And the truth is, could I get mostly where I want to be off of that? Yeah, but it would take me a lot longer. To be honest, me doing anything more than TRT basically is only giving me about double the progress that I would get on normal TRT. And that's actually what the literature usually shows on this stuff. People don't seem to understand that that really is true. You're only going to gain progress at about double the rate of a natural if you are moderately enhanced. That's the reality. Expect to get 1 year's worth of work in 6 months. You're not going to make massive more gains than that. That's the way it works. You're going to double your progress. I could probably do it. The issue I have, and this is what I told him, first of all, I am somewhat philosophically opposed to drug testing in sports at all. And so that's a violation of my philosophy there. The other issue is an ethical issue of, for me personally, I know I've been on gear in heavy doses in the past. I know there's muscle memory from that. I know given enough years of TRT, I will probably regain well above my natural limit, even while staying in the natural range based on the old muscle memory combined with the TRT. It would just be enough time under the iron. So in one way, that's already partially cheating. And the other thing that would go through my head, I already know that there are tons and tons of guys cheating in the IPF. That would weigh on my mind. I would know without one exception that I would have a loophole that would let me use a lot more than my TRT dose of my TRT drug, drop it down when I'm going to be tested, pass my drug test, get by on the metabolite test. That temptation would weigh on me really, really heavily, and I fear that I would end up cheating because I knew I could get away with it without even having to work hard to get it. It wouldn't require me to do math or anything. It would just require me to adjust my dose. That temptation would be so strong with me. I'm a very competitive person that given the option to compete untested, I would rather not put myself in a competitive mindset in a position to where I know I could easily cheat. I know I could do it. I don't want to be in that position to where I have to compromise myself like that, because I know part of me knows that I would do it. So for me, for my own ethics, be able to look at myself in the mirror, I choose to compete the untested and not even put myself in that position. All right, next question. Hey Jason, can you talk about the raw food lifestyle? Are there any real health benefits, or is it just a quack? A lot of these gurus on YouTube sell books and products as well. Is it just about the money? Cheers. I don't know if it's just about the money. Some people really believe it. The problem with it is that it works off this weird assumption that eating raw food is natural, that it's normal for our species. That's not necessarily true. We're well adapted to cook food. We evolved from a cooking species a long time ago. Our pre-ancestors, before we became Homo sapien, we know they were cooking with fire for well over 1 million years, possibly close to 2 million years before we even became what we are now. We're adapted to cook food. The issue is that a lot of foods do become more nutritious. They are better for you raw. Other foods are better for you cooked. You get better absorption of a lot of the minerals. You remove some of the problematic substances in them by actually cooking them. So it's really a case-by-case basis on each individual food, including even many plant foods, as to whether their nutrition profile is better for you cooked versus raw. And a lot of them do really well in either state. So that's the issue with taking it as a philosophy. It's a philosophy that's based upon a line of reason that isn't necessarily true. Now, is an all raw food diet a good way to lose weight quickly? That part is true. Someone who wants to get lean, and it's because you will struggle, for most people, if you're physically active, you're training, you're exercising, and you have any full-time work or school that makes it hard for you to eat for 10 hours straight every day, it's hard for you to get in enough raw food to actually gain body fat. So you're probably going to lose body fat and body weight while being on a whole raw food diet. But it's an issue of it's physically impossible for many people, not everyone, to actually cram in enough raw foods to actually get fat or gain fat on. So that's why that works, and that's why it seems to be a strong selling point and gimmick, because people try that and it works and it's true. But as far as the nutrition end, it really depends on the individual food. All right, next question. What percentage of your subscribers are from the US versus UK versus elsewhere? Right now, because people are curious about this, out of the subscribers of this channel, about 40% of them are from the US, about 20% of them from the UK, and the other 40% come from all over the world. Now, the next biggest box behind that are the other English-speaking countries, meaning if I were to take 80% of the viewers of this channel and combine them together, they would all come from predominantly English-speaking countries. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia. Everyone else is the other 20%. The biggest chunk of that's in Europe. So per capita, England has my highest number of subscribers and viewers per capita because it has a much, much, much smaller population than the US, but only half of the subscribers and views. And that's part of the YouTube's analog system, the way that they distribute videos and advertise them. Because this video is based out of the UK, it tends to give a lot of links to other people subscribing from that region. All right, next question. Good routines to fit in push press into Smolov JR for the bench. Yeah, actually push press is a great accessory for the bench press. Actually, the push press is a good all-around exercise for any type of strength athlete who wants to get stronger. It doesn't matter whether you play field sports or you're a power lifter. If you're a strongman, it's mandatory. What I would do, because the Smolov JR is going to be focused a little more on the bench, you're going to have to use the push press as an accessory movement. I would do it one of two ways. I would either, on whatever your lightest and easiest bench days are, I would consider doing it at 10 sets of 3 with 85%. In one day, just to get massive amounts of volume, I would lean more in that direction for someone who's on gear. Someone wants to work it in and they're drug-free, I would lean more in the direction of treating it as a post-bench accessory, and every time you bench press afterwards, I would probably do like 3 sets of 3 with 85%. Approximately 85%. You could obviously bump that up if it starts to feel lighter over time based upon the RPE. It feels like closer to your true 85%. But that's what I would do with it personally. For guys on gear, I would lean towards 10 by 3 once a week on the lightest bench day with 85%. For guys not on drugs, every time you bench, I would do it afterwards as the next exercise afterwards as a primary accessory. If you really want to work the push press in and you feel like the push press is one of the exercises that really gives you the most, that's how I would work it in there. All right, next question. Are there any over-the-counter designer orals that you take, such as M1T, superdrol, trestolone? If not, why? All right, this is, a lot of people aren't aware, because again, I'm based in the UK. This person is a UK subscriber. They're not aware that these aren't over-the-counter everywhere. All of these products you can walk in and buy at the supplement shop if you're 18 years old in the UK. These are over-the-counter products, even though they are true designer anabolic steroids, and they are all very, very strong. These aren't weak-ass drugs. These are powerful-ass drugs. I've not tried any of these. I have considered superdrol as part of meat prep. I may do it at some point. I haven't gotten around to doing it. The main reason for no on these is that they're pretty toxic. I'm 37 years old. I need to worry about my health. I don't want to be blasting a bunch of methylated oral compounds. I'd like to be around at 60 or 70 if possible and be healthy. So for me, that is a possible issue of why I may hesitate on that. If I were to use them for meat prep, it would be something like just the final week as I'm peaking for a meet. And then maybe a bunch of one of those on meat day, something like superdrol, which I have considered. And that's really just my reasons. It's just the side effects and health issues versus something like testosterone. But as far as anything else, it's not really an issue. They're cost effective. I can get them anywhere. I can order them online through Amazon, whatever. Or I could walk down to the local supplement shop and pay an extra £3 for the bottle. So it's definitely not an availability issue or legality issue. It's an issue of, I'm not really big on compounds like that unless you absolutely need them for an edge, just because of the potential for negative blood markers and health effects. All right, next question. Can genetic potential as a natural be reached through bodyweight exercises alone? Depends on what you mean by body weight. By body weight, do you mean body weight plus weight added? Because if you don't, then no, you will simply not be able to get enough resistance to get anywhere near your natural or drug-free strength potential or size potential. There's no way it's even possible. Now, if you're talking about with adding weight, and if for whatever reason you purely want to do these closed chain type exercises, you need to remember that the squat and the deadlift are body weight movements. The dip and the chin up are body weight movements. So is it possible for a person to get to their maximum size and strength doing weighted squats, squat variations, deadlift variations, weighted dips, chin ups, pull ups, even handstand push ups? Of course it is. But you're going to have to add resistance to do so. It's not something you're going to be able to do without added resistance unless you're willing to get morbidly and massively obese. Because realistically, most natural drug-free lifters can eventually squat 400 pounds. You're going to have to add 400 pounds to your body weight to get to that on a body weight squat. And even people saying, well, you could do it with pistols, one-legged. Well, that's another 200 pounds out. You have to weigh 400 pounds. You have to get fat as hell to do it. It would be silly. You could just add weight. But without adding weight in some way, no, you're not even going to be able to get anywhere near close. Maybe a couple of body parts due to high volumes of chin-ups and things. But not really on anything else. Not even one-arm push-ups are going to get you there. All right, last question of the week. Thoughts on overhead press as only upper body pushing movement if chest development isn't a priority? Well, you can get some chest development off of your overhead pressing anyways, but we're going to assume that by not a priority, obviously you're not doing any other pressing, you're not doing any direct chest work. What I would recommend, because you're only doing one type of press at that point, I would recommend doing variations of the overhead press. Don't just do a single type. I would recommend you do at least two. It could be something like a front push press or a strict behind the neck press, both of those done, or behind the neck push press and strict front press. But the main thing is that you're going to want a little bit of variety in there to make up for the fact that you're not doing any chest pressing, and you're going to find all types of overhead pressing will carry over to the other types of overhead pressing in terms of performance. So you could rotate through them on different days and program them a little differently, but I would do at least two variations of the overhead press if you were to do this. But can it handle most of your upper body pressing power just as well as doing, say, a bench press can or a decline or an incline bench? Absolutely, yes, it can. It just won't give you quite as much chest development, and obviously you won't be able to bench press quite as much if you were to want to do a bench press in competition. But in terms of the development of the rest of the other musculature involved with pressing in the upper body, yeah, it absolutely can do it. But again, for the best balance and overall development, I would pick two types of overhead press to do so that you have some variety there. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Bicepius.